Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, we are continuing our conversation on the future of operations and operational leadership. And in today's episode, I wanted to look at this through the lens of actually scaling your business and scaling more simply and sustainably, something that you hear me talk about often. But I want to put this through the lens of what your right-hand person does and what they own in this process. So, before we dive into that, to give a little bit of context, I'm going to share with you the three core pillars that are part of the lean scaling system, because this is the underpinning of what it really takes to scale a small business simply and sustainably. And there's total of 9 engines as part of the lean scaling system, but those 9 engines all break down into 3 core pillars. And one of those is sustainable success. So this is where you have clarity on exactly where you want to take the business from a vision perspective. You know what a rich, fulfilled life looks like for you as the founder of the business. And you have the right team, you have the right planning in place to be able to connect the dots and actually get where you want to go. So you are looking at things like how much capacity do we actually have in the business? So we're committing to things that are helping us not overwork, not burn out, not be in a state of panic and fire drills and overwhelm all the time. Who do we need on the team, and who specifically do you need to be supporting you so you can stay in your zone of genius? So you have space for the things that you want to be doing to both move the business forward and also to invest in yourself in growing as the leader of your business. And where do you need to make shifts so what you're doing consistently stays in alignment? So you're always, as you are continuing to grow as a leader, as maybe your vision is starting to expand over time and over the years, as you're starting to realize what's actually possible and the type of impact you're actually capable of making. How are you shifting things in the business to keep up with that? How are you making sure that you've got the right planning practices in place again so that you are connecting those dots, aligning the right people to the right things at the right time, so you are getting towards that vision and your goals and your financial targets as quickly and as streamlined as possible. So that is sustainable success, and that is key. And if you think about what an operational leader frequently does in a business or what your right-hand leader does, I say operational leader just because I'm trying to use a generic term that describes whoever it is that supports you as your right hand, but sometimes that person sees themselves more as a CMO. Sometimes they see themselves more as a COO. Sometimes there's a lot of different titles that they use. So know when I say operational leader, I'm just talking more generally about that person who is supporting you and making it possible for you to get yourself out of the day-to-day. So a lot of what I just mentioned for sustainable success is what they do. They do tend to focus on planning. They tend to focus on team leadership. They tend to work with the team to make sure that projects and initiatives and important things get done. So that tends to fit a lot with what a traditional right-hand person does. Where it starts to shift a little bit when I think about the future of ops is this person being much more tapped into the vision, not just able to translate the vision and know what needs to get done, but they're there kind of co-creating the strategy with you on how to bring that vision to life. Instead of hearing you say, here's what we need to do, and they go off and make it happen, they're right there with you with the whiteboard or the virtual whiteboard, brainstorming out, I see where you want to go. That's amazing. Absolutely. Let's think about all the different ways that we can get there. What about if we tried this? What about if we tried this? Hey, you previously mentioned this thing. I think if we combined this with this other thing that we're doing, we could get some fantastic results. And so they become more of that strategic thinking partner in really helping you take your vision and look at the different ways that you can get there. Again, keeping in mind, is it aligned? Is it in a way where we're not going to overwork and burn out the team, burn out ourselves in that process, right? And so that's one of the 3 pillars of the lean scaling system is sustainable success. And that's where your right hand plays a role in that in a more traditional sense, and where I see that role evolving into what I call that soul, that strategy and operations leader. Now, the next area is operational excellence. Again, this is something that your right hand is typically very focused on, right? How are we going to, as a company, be more productive, as a team be more productive, as individuals be more productive? How are we going to continuously improve? How are we going to be measuring what we're doing and see what works, see what doesn't work, and then make those small changes? You hear me say a lot evolutionary change over revolutionary change. So, how do you know what those small incremental evolutionary change components are that you can keep doing so you don't have to get to the point that you've got to throw something out, burn it to the ground, and start again, right? And so all of that falls under that operational excellence. You're optimizing, you're measuring, you're looking at what's working, you're just continuously refining and improving on what you're doing. And again, this tends to fall into a bit of a traditional operational or right hand person role. Where I see that shifting a little bit and where I see that advancing as we look at the future of operations and it being more strategic is again just looking at that through a more strategic lens. A lot of times, operational efficiency is looked at more tactically, more, I need to go and cut this. I need to go and change this. I need to go and update this. And it's done not only tactically, but very laser focused on one particular thing or one particular area. Where I see this really shifting is looking across the entire scope of the business, being able to see the full facets of the business, the full puzzle, as we talked about in the last episode of your vision and all the pieces and how it comes together. And you're able to look at this operational excellence in tandem with sustainable success. You can see the vision and where it's going. You can see the strategies that you're experimenting with and that you're committed to for right now. You can see the plan and the people and where it's going. And through that lens, you're able to, at a more macro level, make the right decisions operationally that are going to get you there in a really lean and really sustainable way, and also a really efficient and effective way. And so it's a lot of the same core activities, but it's just looking at it through a totally different lens. So instead of doing these little micro disconnected optimizations, you are doing this more macro holistic optimization and integration of all of the different systems and all of the different facets across the business. So everything is running better and the whole business is running like one integrated engine instead of a fragmented collection of a whole bunch of things. So that's the first 2 pillars: sustainable success, operational excellence. Now, the third pillar is the one that really differentiates from a lot of what traditional operational leaders do, and the one that I really think is absolutely critical as we look at the future of operations. And this is scalable growth, where sustainable success and operational excellence are really critical, right? You need to have that vision. You need to have the team to support you. You need to have the right planning and the right systems and practices in place to make it possible to achieve that vision. You want to be really effective and really efficient in everything you're doing. All of that, super important, super valuable. However, you need to consistently also be growing your revenue in your business. You need to be increasing your profitability in your business. If you are a very passion fueled and impact driven business, which I suspect you are because that tends to be a lot of the people who I attract in my world, then you want to be constantly expanding your impact and scaling your impact. And so, in order to do that, you need to have a way to continuously drive sustainable and scalable growth in your business. And what happens quite often is operations is treated as back office. Marketing and sales are treated as more kind of frontline. They're the ones who actually grow the business. Ops just runs things and basically things get thrown over the wall. Once a sale is made, it gets handed off to ops and they can go and do delivery and then make sure that all the stuff runs in the back end. And it's like this afterthought. I don't think that's the way that business should run. In my experience and in what I have seen inside thousands of business over these years of all different shapes and sizes, that never works very well whatsoever. You end up with a ton of handoff. You end up with a lot of things that fall through the cracks, and the one who suffers is the client and the client experience, and you end up with much lower revenues and much lower profit margins as a result. People don't retain, people don't refer, sometimes people ask for refunds. It ends up being a little bit of a hot mess behind the scenes, and people don't really talk about that or address that so much. So much focus is on driving new leads, more and more marketing, more and more sales, right? It's this more and more and more on the front end of the business, and nobody really thinks about the full end-to-end customer journey. Nobody really is looking at what does it take to get somebody into our world from the very first touch point all the way through. How do we keep them for years, either as active clients or top of mind in continuously telling other people about our work and the incredible job that we do and the incredible experience they had working with us, right? And the person who is best equipped to do that is not your marketing person. It's not your salesperson, it's actually your operational person. It's the person who is owning that delivery. It's your person who has that experience with the client over and over and over again. It's the person who's working closely with them. I know I shared in the last episode, Jess works one-on-one with all of our clients. Anyone who's in our certification programs, they get me on our weekly calls. Me and Jess are together, but Jess does all of the one-on-one mentorship, and she is a complete and total rock star. Clients absolutely love her, but she owns in so many ways that client experience. She is the one who could reach out to past clients from years ago and ask them for a review or a testimonial or say, "Hey, we're just doing this thing. Are you interested in rejoining us?" It would actually mean more coming from her than it even would coming from me because she's the one who works one-on-one with the clients. The people who did the marketing, they don't even still work here, right? Jess is the one who has that relationship and that longevity, right? The marketing team has switched out. So if you wanna set your business up for the best possible success, if you wanna make sure that your clients are having the best possible experience, you need your right-hand person to own and be a key part of scalable growth in the business. Now, this does not mean they do your social media posting. It does not mean they're the primary marketer in your business. Doesn't mean they do sales calls. It's none of those sorts of things. But what it is that they are the ones who understand all of the different parts and pieces of the business. They know what's happening and how things are fitting together. They're ensuring that marketing and sales and delivery are integrated. They're looking at what you're doing for visibility and making sure you've got the right reporting and the right metrics in place, that the right KPIs are being set and that they're actually being met. They're looking at your conversion percentages and your conversion approach. They're looking at however you launch, whether it's something that you just do more organically, whether it's something you do actual launch events for, whichever way you approach launch, evergreen live, or 1,000 other ways that you can get there. They're looking at that to see how effective it is. They're the ones who are looking at optimizing that, right? It's not just optimizing your back-end systems and tools. It's looking at how can we optimize the way that we're converting, because you double your conversion percentage, that is a huge financial impact in your business. Sometimes all it takes is micro percentage adjustments in conversions to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of impact in revenue and profit, right? And so they're looking at all of those things. They're looking at visibility, they're looking at conversion, and they are really looking at delivery. They are making sure that every touch point with the client is optimized, is really effective, that automations are being used where necessary, and that they are creating the space for the human touch points that are going to make the biggest difference and make your client feel like they're having such a luxe experience that they want to stay with you. Right, and so the scalable growth engine is absolutely critical. This is looking again across that visibility, conversion, and delivery, and looking at it more from a systemization perspective, an optimization perspective, and an integration perspective. It's looking at how it integrates with the whole business itself and how it paints the picture of taking the business towards the vision. instead of there being this big divide and kind of black hole between the two, where you've got like marketing, sales, creative stuff over on one side, and then everything else for running the business on the other. It just does not work that way. And if you've tried to do it that way, you have probably felt the pain of how it does not really work that way, especially in a business under $5 million. So the lean scaling system has all three facets: sustainable success, operational excellence, and scalable growth. And it's critical that someone is looking across all three of those pillars in the business. Again, they're not necessarily rolling up their sleeves and doing every single thing across all of those. There's way too much that would need to be done there, but they are looking across it, they are owning it, they are thinking about it, and they are looking at how each of those 9 engines that are within those 3 pillars need to come together, and which one needs attention now and which one needs attention next. So your business is as successful as possible. That is what it takes to build a business that is scalable, and that is scalable in a simple and a sustainable way. Without that, it is a lot of chaos. You've got a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, and it's no wonder why you end up so stuck in the middle of everything. When you bring in someone who understands what it actually takes to scale a business, who understands how to look at your business and know which of those 3 areas need the biggest focus right now, and which of the 9 engines within those areas need the biggest focus right now. And they know how to point the right people at the right things and be setting up for the next thing that needs focus. That makes such a big difference in your business. And that is what your right hand person should be doing. Your right-hand person is not there to write SOPs. Yes, that's a small part of what they might do. They're not there to keep your Asana or your Monday updated. Again, that might be a small part of what they do. But what they're really there for is to help you sustainably and simply scale your business. Whether you are currently scaling or whether you are right now in a period of growth and trying to get yourself ready to scale, and you're trying to make these shifts and adjustments now so you can do it without all the complexity and chaos that most businesses experience. This to me is the future of operations. This is what I look for and what I expect from my right hand people. And this is what you should be looking for and expecting from your right hand people. And if you have somebody and you're thinking they're amazing, but I don't know that they have all those skills, I really wish they had all those skills, send them through and I am happy to certify them. They will work one-on-one with Jess being mentored. And as I said, she's absolutely fantastic at that. And they will work with me in the ongoing calls, but they will learn the entire lean scaling system, which they can then go and apply in your business. And if you're listening and you are a right hand leader, if you are a consultant, if you are someone who works with other businesses and want to install and use the lean scaling system in the businesses you work with, again, that's what the certification program is for. And you do get licensed to be able to use that system. The other thing is when I think about the shifts in operations due to AI, when I think about the shifts in other roles due to I talked about this a lot in the first episode. So if you didn't listen, go back and listen to that one. But if you think about what I just walked through with the lean scaling system, when you think about the depth of knowledge and expertise that someone would need to have, and the ability to look at your business or any business and diagnose based on that depth of knowledge exactly what's needed and what engine needs to be tuned next so that you can get where you want to go based on your vision and based on your goals. That really takes a specialized skill set, and that is something that is going to be very challenging to have an AI tool do and do really well. And while capabilities are advancing all the time, and you could argue and say, well, if I just ask it the right questions, it's going to be able to give me the right direction. And there's some truth to that. There is nothing like that person who knows you really, really well and gets to know you really well. The person who's been there so long and had so many conversations with clients and so many conversations with the team, and who's seen in real life shifts in the market and campaigns you've done in the past and things that you've done and tools that you've tried and things that have worked and things that haven't. And be able to filter everything through that lens and make the right decisions that are right for the business, not only for right now, but also based on where you want to take it. That is where it is so important to have an actual person in the business owning that. And when that person then also knows how to leverage AI strategically, so they're holding the piece of it that is uniquely their capability to do, but they know how to leverage this incredible resource to go off and simplify certain things down, automate certain things that don't need to be done manually, doesn't provide specific value in the client experience. So why not automate it, right? When they have that knowledge on top of it, all of a sudden, it just makes things go so much quicker. It makes your experience so much different and your ability to get out of the day to day actually realistic instead of this thing that you just wish for. And that to me is part of what having the right hand person makes possible for you. That's why, I mean, we do AI workshops every single month and we look at real world scenarios of how to apply this stuff. There's really a lot that goes into successfully scaling a business, and I'm sure you know this, especially if you have been trying to do so much of this on your own, if you've been trying to piecemeal things together, or if maybe you have a couple hours from a strategist here or a coach there or an advisor there, and maybe you've got a VA supporting you or somebody doing things, but you don't really have somebody fully owning the scaling in your business. This just makes such a complete and total difference in the type of business that you're leading. And it's absolutely possible when you have the right hand leader. So again, just quick recap from the last episode. There's two different levels of right hand leader. The strategy person is what we call a CSOO, a chief strategy and operating officer. And that person at the strategic execution level is what we call an SOM, a scalable ops manager. Strategic execution level is that person who is the bridge between strategy and execution. They're the one, again, closer to the work surface, making sure things are getting done, working closely with the team, putting the plans in place, very focused on the now and the next month up to the next 90 days. And then your strategy person is the one who can be you in your business. They're the one where if you truly stepped away, whether you had a life emergency happen or whether you had an incredible opportunity that you were able to go and pursue, you could be off the grid for 6 months or a year and they would keep your business running. This isn't like a 1 week thing. This is a long-term extended absence. Let's just pretend that you got invited to the world's most amazing opportunity, bucket list thing you wanted to do forever, but you have to step away from your business for a full 6 months. You cannot talk to anybody. You cannot answer questions. You can't log in. You can't check a thing. That is your strategy person, who is your right-hand person at that level, who could run your business and take over. That is Jessica for me. She could do that for me. She has done that for me with everything going on with my dad. And so when you get to multi-seven figures is usually when you need that person. That can vary based on your business and your particular goals, but usually I see that more in the multi-seven figure range. Under seven figures, you definitely want somebody at the strategic execution level, and eventually you need both. So again, if you did not listen to last week's episode, make sure you circle back and listen to that because I went a little bit deeper into that in that episode. Now, if your right-hand person obviously did not go through my certification program and does not know my lean scaling system, they won't necessarily know the exact things that I walked through in this episode. But regardless of what I called things, regardless of the titles, they should know how to do what I talked about. They should understand how to take the particular actions that I walked through. They should understand how to bring your vision to life and get you out of the day-to-day. That is what the future of operational leadership and the future of operations looks like. So this was the second part of a multi-part series. I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. Again, if there are specific topics that you want me to cover on the future of operations, please send me an email, info@leanoutmethod.com, and I'd be happy to include those in the rest of the series. Be sure to tune in as I release the next few parts. And if you want the opportunity to ask me questions, go through this live together, I do have a live Future of Operations workshop coming up. Head over to strategicopsinstitute.com/future and get registered. And I look forward to seeing you there. And I will be back with you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale-smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.